Climate change is the most pressing issue of our time.
Actually see it coming at you in a wall of flame.
This is the worst drought to hit South Africa since 1982.
A tornado outbreak in parts of the U.S. on Sunday, spawning dozens of reports of tornadoes.
Experts estimate that we only have 9 years left to avert catastrophe, and yet we consistently fail to address the crisis. An article from the BBC highlighted that 2020 was tied with 2016 as the warmest year on record. Meanwhile, the last decade has been the hottest we've ever seen. The writing's on the wall. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, you will be affected by climate change. So you have the responsibility to know what it is. But with so much information out there about climate change, it can be hard sometimes to distinguish what is fact and what is just another person's opinion. So today, I want to set the record straight on 3 misconceptions about climate change. Number 1. Climate change is a man-made crisis that our world is experiencing for the first time. This is partly false. The fact of the matter is that Earth's climate has gone through several changes in the past, even before human civilization existed. Like, for example, the asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs lifted enough dust and sulfur into the upper atmosphere that it actually cooled Earth's climate by more than 20 degrees Celsius. Climate can also be affected by things like changes in eccentricity, axial precession, or changes in obliquity. So really, climate change isn't anything new. But if that's the case, then why are so many people worried about it? Well, like I said, this claim is only partly false. And that's because while climate change may not be anything new, the current rate of warming is extremely likely due to human activity. And we're seeing it worsen at an unprecedented rate. Another thing that is unique to the human era is civilization. And with civilization comes population growth. And with more people on the earth, our capacity for suffering increased with it.
So slowing down climate change isn't about saving the planet, it's about us, about our vulnerability to a level of climate disruption that human civilization has simply never seen before.
Reduce,
Reduce.
reuse,
Reuse.
recycle.
Recycle.
For decades now, we've heard this line repeated over and over. It's an infomercial.
We must reduce all this garbage we're creating.
I'm organizing recycling in our building.
I'm reusing this plastic jug.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
It's in the news.
Some of that plastic gets sorted and sent to landfills, but a lot is shipped overseas.
China's urban middle class grows, consuming more and likely recycling more.
It's even in our popular media.
Peppa Pig. Recycling.
Let's clear up the breakfast things. We don't put bottles in the rubbish bin. They can be recycled.
And for years, we've been told that when we fail to reduce, reuse, and recycle, we are directly causing climate change to worsen. But is this really the case? Are consumers really responsible for climate change? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you shouldn't reduce, reuse, and recycle. After all, years of study has proven that these activities help reduce pollution and climate change. But does this mean that consumers should be held primarily liable for it? Of course not.
It's produced by companies and they profited from it. Pero they do not have any contribution to waste management of the city.
With plastic pollution, it isn't caused by the consumer. It's caused by companies that have failed to switch from plastic packaging to more eco-friendly alternatives. And this is the case with other types of packaging like styrofoam, bubble wrap, packaging peanuts, and any other non-biodegradable packaging material. So really, the responsibility to reduce, reuse, and recycle doesn't just fall on the consumers. It falls on the companies as well. After all, climate change affects these companies just as much as it affects their consumers. Number 3. The parties most responsible for climate change should be the ones who take charge of solving climate change. Today, the countries with the largest CO2 emissions are China, followed by the United States, then the European Union, then India, then Russia, and so on and so forth. But if we look at historical emissions, we see that the largest cumulative emitter is actually the US, followed by the EU. The disparity in the way we think about accountability in the context of climate change is why it's so hard to hold any one country accountable for all the damage we've done. Our failure to hold these countries accountable is considered by some to be unethical. But then again, maybe pointing our fingers at just one party isn't the best way to approach this crisis.
Climate change is a global problem, and no country alone can fix it. In the end, it's pretty simple. Everybody needs to do the best they can.
For countries like the US and the EU who have already industrialized, this means innovating and providing eco-friendly and affordable alternatives to CO2 emitting equipment and vehicles. For countries like the Philippines and China who are currently industrializing, this means developing in a way that is sustainable and unlike the way that other Western countries developed. Because like I said, climate change doesn't just affect a specific group. It affects all of us. And if we want to preserve this wonderful planet that we call home, we're all going to have to do our part to fight climate change.